Hi everyone, I am back with a card making tutorial and today I have two CAS cards for you all where we'll be concentrating on some watercolors and some stenciling on top of it. So for my first card, I have decided to use these watercolors. Now before I get into the cards everything, normally whenever I am doing such kind of scenery cards, I take my inspiration for cards and colors from Pinterest, which I have already shown you in my last CAS card video and I'll still show you again in my second card. So do have a look if you want some inspirations on how to see, where to see for some color combinations. Now I have a piece of craftangles 100% cotton craft watercolor cardstock. So this is 100% cotton, so it takes watercolors really well, blends very quickly and all that, and that is why I tend to use them. Now here it is a very simple watercoloring that I'm trying to do, and that is because I want this card to be made by anyone who is also not a watercolor artist. So this does very simple watercoloring. So what I'm doing is I'm kind of moving from a gradient of yellow to pink, and in center the blending color that I'm using is orange. So I kind of first put my two colors, which is pink, which is more of a darker tone of pink or more earthy pink, which is ripe plums craftangles liquid watercolors, and then at the bottom I'm putting lemon tart, which is a yellow shade, and then in the center I'm using pumpkin orange to kind of blend both those pink and yellow to a gradient. And this is what I come up with. Now normally in all my watercolor tutorials I tend to let this dry like through air, like a normal environment, and not use a heat tool. However, I wanted to make some quick cards, and that is why I'm using a heat gun here today. However, if you're doing it at home, I would highly recommend you let this air dry so you can see more of a blended look. Now once I'm happy with how the colors have dropped in on top of the paper, I am kind of making some very simple squiggly lines, making sure that the squiggly lines are big at the top coming from the sides, and then in the center they kind of fade into a thinner lines and smaller lines. So this is how you create very simple, easy, basic clouds in your scenery, and that is what I am trying to do here. Once everything is dry, I will move on to create a hill kind of a structure. Now in my last set of cards that I made, I did exact same thing but with distress inks and blending brushes. Here I am showing you the same with liquid watercolors, and in my upcoming video you'll see something similar but with chalk paints and acrylic paints. So I'm just trying to show you that you can create such kind of scenery cards with so many different products that you already have. Now here I had used kind of a scrap piece paper which I had already cut down from my last color cards which I spoke of, and then I used some black liquid watercolors to kind of create that hill. Now once I'm happy with all that, I kind of move on with this silhouette stencil. So this is that dancing girl craftangles silhouette stencil, and I am planning to put her silhouette on top of the background, the scenery that we created. Now for this I wanted to show you another way, which is using texture paste. Now you could have of course done ink blending, or you could have also tried watercolors. However, watercolors I would suggest for something which is loose like a hill or something. For the crisp image of a dancer, I would highly suggest you use something like this, which is a texture paste or ink blending, which I did in my last tutorial. So here I am using texture paste, and I kind of applied it on top of the stencil, and I had marked the certain areas, and once I remove, you can see how crisp the image of the dancer has come in. Now once this is dry, I will put on some stickers on top of it. Now here, keeping in line with what previous stickers I had used in my previous cards, again if you just go on my YouTube channel, you'll see the previous tutorial which has a similar set of cards but with a different technique of ink blending, etc. So here I am kind of using my Make Art Stay Station, which I also spoke about in my last video on why I like to use these a lot in my card making tutorial, and it kind of lines up and make sure my sentiment is straight on card, and then I use the scale as a marker. So once the sentiment is done, I call this card a done, and I have not shown this part, but you know that whenever I complete a card base, I put it on a top of a craftangles note card, and that completes my card. Now for this second card, here I was showing you how I kind of play around and see inspirations on what kind of colors I want to use, etc. And then I just Google, like in this particular case I was Googling up northern lights, and I was taking the inspiration on the colors I want to use, etc. So here I showed you one example. However, you'll see that I kind of moved away from that color combination and used the traditional green colors for my northern lights. So for this I am using Craftangles liquid watercolors Limelight, which is this bright neon-y yellow green, and then I'll use a dark blue, which is Ocean Breeze, and then at the end I'll use black, which is carbon black. So you can use those colors. And here again I would suggest, for the sake of this video, I have dried everything quickly, using a heat tool. However, if you are you have time, do let this air dry. You'll see even more beautiful blending coming through. This particular piece of Northern Light painting is one of my favorite till date out of all the cards that I had created. And you see how easy it is to create this particular watercolor effect. It just took me like 5 minutes of applying colors, and it created a beautiful background. So whenever you're doing card making, don't restrict yourself just to stamps and coloring the stamps, etc. You can always make such kind of beautiful cards where you are playing with non-traditional supplies, like creating your own backgrounds and then using stencils to create silhouette, which will form the focal point of your card. So that is the idea with this card series, where I am creating a lot of cards using the silhouette stencils. So once I am happy with how the colors have been laid out, I am just drying out the colors. And here you can see that the waves have come out quite crisp because I did not give it enough time to blend. However, if you want a more blended look, you could of course let it air dry, and that will give you even better blended results. Now for this particular one, I decided to play with another silhouette stencil by Craftangles. This is the I think the couple silhouette ones, and it has a lot of couples in different positions that you can use on a card, on a painting, bookmark, etc. Here I decided to make a card out of this particular design, same as my last card that I made in this particular video. Now again, I am here using the same concept of using texture paste as a medium, where I am adding it through the stencil, and this will create a crisp silhouette of the couple. Now again, this make art when station, where I put the scrap pieces on the side, and the magnetic base and the magnets help keep everything in the place while I am applying texture paste on the top of the card. So again, this is something which has come very handy to me, and this has made my life a lot easier. However, if you don't have that or don't want to invest, you could definitely have used masking paper or masking tape to mask the areas of the stencil and use the particular silhouette that you wanted to use in the card. Now again, I am using the same scrap piece of stencil that I had created for the hills in all my previous cards and this card, and I'm kind of applying it through the stencil to kind of create that I'm applying some texture paste through that handmade stencil to kind of create that hilly structure. And then again, I'll dry these all with texture paste, and you can see how bold it looks once everything is dry. The black comes out really well on this particular background. And now, just to add some finishing touches, I have added some silver splatters which act like silver stars behind the couple, and for that I'm using Craftangles watercolor pans. Now as always with all my videos, whatever products I talk about or use will be in the description of the video below, or you can always check the blog post and it will contain all the product links in the blog post. Now for the sentiment, again, as I said, I don't want to use a stamp. You could have used a stamp and did embossing on top of it and it would have come out beautifully. However, I wanted to do something which is easy and for people who don't have your traditional card making supplies. So here I am using these sentiment sheets by Craftangles. These are ready-made sheets which have a lot of sentiments that you can use directly, as is how I have used here, or you can pass them through our foils and create like gold foil or silver foil sentiments and then use them directly. So these were the two cards that I created using the Craftangles watercolor papers, watercolors and stencils. I hope you enjoyed today's tutorial. If you did, don't forget to like, comment and do consider subscribing to my channel. I'll see you in my next sets of tutorial. Till then guys, take care. Bye bye.